6 seasons, 60 years of reruns, billions of dollars in revenue. But here's the number that matters most: half. In 1960, half the audience watching The Flintstones were adults like you, not kids. Because this wasn't a children's cartoon. It was the first animated sitcom in prime time, designed for grown-ups dealing with real problems. And here's another number: $15,000. That's what Wilma's voice actress took as a buyout instead of residuals. Today, those residuals would be worth millions. One decision, one number, a lifetime of regret. I've got 10 facts backed by archives, interviews, and documented history that prove the Flintstones had more secrets than any episode ever revealed. From the near-fatal car crash that almost silenced Barney, to the lawsuit that nearly buried Bedrock before it began. Hit that subscribe button right now, because in the next 10 minutes, you're getting the real story behind the modern Stone Age family. And trust me, the truth is better than any episode you remember. Let's start with something that shocked the entire world in 1963. Fact number 10, the baby that stopped America. February 22nd, 1963. Do you remember where you were when Pebbles Flintstone was born? Because millions of Americans do. They planned their evening around it. But here's what made it truly remarkable. This wasn't just another TV episode. Hanna-Barbera turned it into a global event. They launched a contest asking viewers to guess the baby's name, weight, and gender. Thousands of entries poured in from around the world. The winner? An anonymous butcher from Florida who guessed Pebbles. His prize? A trip around the world and $2,000 in spending money. Not bad for filling out a postcard. When the blessed event finally aired, it became one of the most watched episodes in early television history. Water cooler conversations the next morning weren't about politics or sports. They were about a cartoon baby. And here's the thing that still amazes me. People cared. They genuinely cared about what happened to these animated characters. That's when the Flintstones stopped being just a show and became something bigger. But that baby almost never happened, because the show itself nearly got killed before it even started. Fact number 9. The lawsuit that almost buried Bedrock. Jackie Gleason was furious. The star of The Honeymooners looked at the Flintstones and saw something very familiar. Fred Flintstone was basically Ralph Cramden in animal skins. Barney was Ed Norton with a club. Even the wives played the same long-suffering roles. Gleason's lawyers told him he had a slam-dunk case. He could sue Hanna-Barbera, prove they'd copied his show, and maybe even pull the Flintstones off the air entirely. But then, someone asked him one question. Do you really want to be known as the man who killed Fred Flintstone? That stopped him cold. Rather than become the guy who destroyed Primetime's first animated hit, Gleason let it go. Hanna and Barbera later admitted The Honeymooners heavily influenced their show. But they called it a compliment, not a crime. So Bedrock survived, not because of copyright law, but because Jackie Gleason didn't want that legacy. But even after dodging that bullet, the show faced another crisis, one that could have silenced Barney Rubble forever. Fact number 8. The car crash that nearly killed Barney's voice. January 24th, 1961. Sunset Boulevard, Mel Blanc, the voice of Barney Rubble, Bugs Bunny, and half the Looney Tunes gang, crashed head-on into another car, both legs shattered, pelvis broken, triple skull fracture. He slipped into a coma, and doctors weren't sure he'd survive. For weeks, Mel didn't respond to anyone. Then one day, his doctor tried something different. Instead of asking, "How are you feeling, Mel?" he said, "Hey, Bugs Bunny, how are you?" And from somewhere deep in that coma, Mel answered, "Just fine, Doc. How are you?"
One day he came in and says, "Hey, Bugs Bunny, how are you?" And I answered him, "Just fine, Doc. How are you?"
That one line told everyone that Mel Blanc, and all those voices, were still fighting. While he recovered, Dawes Butler temporarily stepped in as Barney. But when Mel was ready to return, he didn't wait until he could walk into the studio. Instead, Hanna-Barbera brought the studio to him. They set up recording equipment in his hospital room. Mel delivered Barney's lines from his hospital bed, surrounded by the cast who refused to record without him. Not even a near-fatal car crash could keep Mel Blanc from doing what he loved. And Bedrock never missed a beat. But while Barney's voice survived, another voice change happened that most fans never even noticed. Fact number 7. When Betty got a new voice, and nobody knew. Babe Bernadette gave Betty Rubble her voice for 4 seasons, sweet but sassy, the perfect balance to Barney's goofiness. But in 1964, CBS offered her the lead role in a new sitcom called Petticoat Junction. At first, she tried doing both, recording Betty's voice while filming her live-action series. But the schedule was brutal, and eventually she had to choose. She picked the starring role and said goodbye to Bedrock. Enter Jerry Johnson, who took over as Betty for the final 2 seasons. Here's the impressive part. Johnson's impression was so spot on that most viewers never realized the switch had happened.
I say, yabba-dabba-doo!
Same tone, same warmth, same delivery. It's one of those seamless transitions that shows how well the Flintstones kept running, even when the people behind the voices moved on. But speaking of voices, there's one decision that haunts the show's history, a choice that seemed smart at the time, but cost someone millions. Fact number 6. The $15,000 decision that haunted Wilma's voice. Jean Vanderpill gave Wilma Flintstone her voice, her warmth, and that perfectly timed "Fred" yell that could stop a brontosaurus in its tracks. During the show's original run, she earned $250 per episode, standard pay for 1960s voice work. When the series wrapped in 1966, she faced a choice: take a one-time buyout of $15,000 or gamble on residuals if the show ever got rerun in syndication. Here's the thing. At the time, betting on cartoon reruns sounded absurd. Animation was considered disposable entertainment. And $15,000 in 1966? That was serious money. About $140,000 in today's dollars. So Jean took the guaranteed cash. It wasn't a bad decision. It was smart, based on everything anyone knew about television. Except the Flintstones didn't disappear. It became a syndication monster, still on the air more than 60 years later, generating billions in revenue. Jean later joked, "If I got residuals, I wouldn't live in San Clemente. I'd own San Clemente." But she wasn't bitter. She knew she'd made the call everyone would have made. And her experience helped push for better protections for voice actors in future contracts. Sometimes the smartest decision still haunts you, but at least it paved the way for others. Now, speaking of decisions that changed everything, let's talk about the moment the Flintstones made television history. Fact number 5. The first cartoon that changed primetime forever. September 30th, 1960, 8:30 p.m. When the Flintstones premiered on ABC, it did something no animated show had ever done. It aired in prime time. Not Saturday morning, not after school. Prime time, when families gathered around their one television set. The humor hit where grown-ups lived. Work stress, marriage, bills. Trying to keep your boss happy at the quarry. Meanwhile, kids loved the slapstick and dinosaur mayhem. But the show was designed with adults in mind. And the original sponsor made that crystal clear. Winston Cigarettes. For the first 2 seasons, Fred and Barney literally hawked smokes during commercial breaks. "Let's take a Winston break," they'd say.
"Let's take a Winston break. That's it!"
Lighting up on screen. It wasn't until season 3, right after Pebbles was born, that the network realized maybe cartoon characters promoting cigarettes to kids wasn't the best look. Winston was out. Welch's grape juice was in. The Flintstones held the title as the longest-running prime-time animated series for nearly 3 decades, until The Simpsons finally surpassed it in 1997. Without the Flintstones, There would be no Simpsons, no Family Guy, no streaming lineup full of animated families. Fred walked so Homer could waddle. But even with all that success, the show made one desperate move that backfired spectacularly. Fact number 4, The Great Gazoo and the Moment It All Fell Apart. October 1965, Season 6. Ratings were slipping, and the producers panicked. Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie were huge, so they thought, why not give Bedrock a magical sidekick? Enter the Great Gazoo, a green alien from the planet Zatox, voiced by Harvey Korman, who crash-landed in Bedrock and could only be seen by Fred, Barney, and the kids. He called everyone dum-dum and solved problems with magic. And that's exactly what broke the show. The Flintstones worked because it showed modern problems solved with prehistoric solutions, not cosmic shortcuts. Gazoo turned a clever sitcom into a sci-fi fantasy, and viewers hated it. He only lasted 11 episodes before the series ended in April 1966. But the damage was done. Gazoo became the poster child for what fans now call jumping the shark. That moment when a show tries too hard to stay relevant and loses what made it special. But here's something most people don't know. The Flintstones almost had a completely different name. Fact number 3. They were almost the Flagstones. Imagine tuning in to ABC in 1960 and hearing, "Welcome to the Flagstones." Sounds like a geology textbook, right? In the original 1959 pilot, Fred and Wilma weren't Flintstones at all. They were Flagstones. The name made it through early production and voice recordings before someone finally checked if anyone else was using it. Turns out, the Flagstone family had been living in the Sunday comics for years, in the strip High and Lois. The last thing Hanna-Barbera needed was a trademark lawsuit before their first episode even aired. So with weeks to go, they scrambled for alternatives. The Gladstones was briefly considered and quickly rejected. Finally, they landed on a name that actually worked: the Flintstones. It was stronger, punchier, and perfect for Stone Age puns. Honestly, it's hard to imagine Fred Flintstone being called Fred Flagstone. It just doesn't sound right. Thank goodness someone caught it before millions of dollars in merchandise got printed with the wrong name. That would have been a yabba-dabba disaster. But speaking of merchandise, you won't believe how long the Flintstones have been selling products. Fact number 2. The cereal that outlived the show. Most TV shows end when the final episode airs, not the Flintstones. In 1971, 5 years after the show ended, Post Foods launched Fruity Pebbles and Cocoa Pebbles. For decades, Fred and Barney starred in commercials where Barney schemed to steal Fred's cereal. Here's the wild part. Fruity and Cocoa Pebbles are the longest-running cereal brands based on TV characters still sold today. They're still popular with kids who have never watched a single episode of The Flintstones. The cereal outlived the cultural memory of the show itself. And it didn't stop there. In 1968, Flintstones Chewable Vitamins launched, and they're still one of the top-selling children's vitamin brands in America. The show ended in 1966, but the merchandise kept printing money for 60 years. Fred and Wilma became a lifestyle brand before that term even existed. But none of it, not Bedrock, not primetime animation, not any of it, would have happened without one unexpected hero. Fact number 1. How a blue dog built Bedrock. Before Fred Flintstone ever yelled "Yabba Dabba Doo," his entire future depended on a polite blue dog with a southern drawl. In 1958, Hanna-Barbera launched the Huckleberry Hound Show, a low-budget cartoon aimed at kids. Nothing fancy, just a charming hound dog getting into trouble every week. But then something weird happened. By 1960, a nationwide survey revealed that nearly half of Huck's audience were adults. That got Hanna-Barbera's attention real fast. Up until then, television animation was strictly kids' stuff. Cartoons belonged on Saturday mornings, not prime time. But if adults were already tuning in for a talking dog,
Barney, you're very talented.
What would happen if they actually made a show aimed at them? That's when William Hanna and Joseph Barbera had their light bulb moment. They took the formula of shows like The Honeymooners, wrapped it in cartoon humor, and built a modern Stone Age family that could work for everyone. When the Flintstones premiered in 1960, it became the first animated sitcom in prime time, a show parents could watch without feeling like they were babysitting. And none of it would have happened without a humble blue dog who proved that cartoons didn't have to be just for kids. Sometimes, the biggest shifts in television come from the most unlikely places. In this case, it was a southern hound dog who accidentally proved that cartoons could grow up too. And there you have it, 10 weird facts hidden in the Flintstones that most people never knew. From near lawsuits to tragic accidents to a blue dog that changed everything, the show you loved had a story behind it that's just as entertaining as anything that happened in Bedrock. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, do me a favor. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment below and tell me, what's your favorite Flintstones memory? Did you watch it when it first aired? Or did you discover it in reruns with your kids or grandkids? And if you know someone who grew up watching Fred and Wilma, share this video with them. Let's keep these memories alive together.